Welcome to the Dreams of Consciousness podcast. If you'd be so kind, would you mind introducing yourself?
My name is Karl Agell. I sing for Legions of Doom and various other bands.
And Karl, since we'll be speaking about Legions of Doom today, would you mind telling me what kind of music is Legions of Doom? What kind of band would you say you are?
It's pretty much in the name. It's spelled out. We're Doom, and we're Doom metal band, kind of old school, uh, based in rooted more in Sabbath and um, older older parts of the Doom genre, so to speak, more of the past, and got more of a heavy metal vibe rather than being kind of lumped in with a bunch of different new subgenres. Nothing wrong with that, but we're kind of old school Doom.
Would you say True Doom?
True. I don't know. I think everybody's got a right to do whatever they want to call it. That's just my opinion. Um, I think it's just more of the old school kind of, like if you think of some of the pillars of doom, like the Obsessed and Saint Vitus and Candlemass, and obviously Trouble. It's more rooted in that kind of older vein.
And I should mention that Legions of Doom, since you mentioned Trouble, is an offshoot of the Skull, which was itself an offshoot from Trouble. Um,
Correct. Yeah.
but before we get there, Karl, can you tell people a little bit about your background and what you were doing before Legions of Doom?
I've been playing in bands. I'm going to show my age, but literally for 40 years, going way, way, way back in the
I
80s,
know
early 80s.
I grew up on one of those bands.
Did you really? So yeah. So my original band that I was in, I got my start with this hardcore punk band in the Connecticut hardcore scene in the 80s called Seizure. And then I went on from Seizure to School of Violence. We had a record on Death Metal Blade. That was a New York City based band. And then from that band, I joined Corrosion of Conformity, did the Blind album, where probably was the most attention I received. And a lot of people remember me from that. And then after I parted ways with COC, the bassist and I of COC, Phil Swisher and I started a band called Leadfoot, and we had three albums. The first one was on Roadrunner, I'll Bring It On, and did two more albums, Take a Look and We Drink for Free. And then from that, we went on to, I had a band called King Hitter, did one EP, unrestricted release. And that was a 5-song EP that didn't stand the test of time. I'm proud of that release though. And then I did several COC blind reunions with Reed while he was still around, and also then formed a band out of some of the guys from Leadfoot started a band called Lie Heavy, which is still a current band signed to Heavy Psych Sounds. We have an album out called Burn to the Moon,
Yeah, that's a
which
good album.
thanks, man. And
Yeah.
then obviously I've done projects also with Dan Lorenzo and Johnny Kelly, Patriarchs in Black. I've done three different albums with them, and a fourth one on the way. Where the various artists. But right now, my main focus, especially for this interview, is Legions of Doom, and that I was brought into that fold because um, literally the first Lie Heavy show was to be opening up for the Obsessed in the Skull 3 years ago, exactly August 2021, and the Skull didn't show up. We played the Obsessed, and we found out a little bit later that a bunch of the members had contracted COVID, and the rest is history. As Eric Wagner succumbed to it tragically, and I got a call 9 months later after that from Ron Holzner, who's an old dear friend of mine that I've known for decades, and he reached out and said, "Hey, man, do you think you'd be up for doing a tribute show in Chicago in front of all the old fans and giving me some closure and that kind of thing?" And his family will be there and kids, ex-wife, girlfriend. So it's slightly daunting to fill those enormous shoes, but I accepted, and it went well, and it felt right and felt uh, like it was in the right vein, and we got the full endorsement from family and fans, and decided to do some more shows, and then went on to do some more shows in Europe, and then again, later we did Europe again, Hellfest and Grass Pop, and it more from just being us doing skull songs to us figuring out a way forward. And Scott Riggers, the almighty Scott Riggers from St. Vitus, was brought in to also sing and share vocal duties, and that just became Legions of Doom, and a way for us to figure out a path forward where we could both play Skull stuff and then also play all the legacy stuff from all our different bands that we're in, including St. Vitus stuff, Corrosion stuff, Trouble stuff, you know, things from all of our stuff that we've done before, legitimately so, because we all actually wrote those songs. So it's been a really cool experience, and it's led us up to this moment where we're releasing this album on September 13th with TP Records, which is basically Legions of Doom Skull 3. And it was all songs that were basically in progress for the third Skull album. And then Eric passed away, and Ron was able to reach out to the family and get Eric's notebooks and his lyrics, and fully sanctioned by you know, the Wagner family, and we, you know, brought it in, and Scott Riggers and I were able to interpret those words and bring our own vocal melodies to it, and basically that's what you have right now is us putting forward 4 tracks of me singing, 4 tracks with Scott Riggers, and then 1 track with even Eric Wagner singing.
I'd like to go back
So yeah, so
to your
pardon
time
me.
with COC and Leadfoot, if you don't mind, before we speak more about the album. Um,
Oh no, no problem. I tend to ramble on, so I just try my summary right there. You know,
no worries. So it, in those days, did you run into trouble? Did you know the Trouble guys while you were in COC and Leadfoot?
we did. We crossed paths with them. They were obviously hugely influential, and they were out and about touring at the exact same time we were. Um, I was invited. I remember when they played in Raleigh at the Rialto Theater back in the early '90s. They were opening up for Danzig, and we had actually toured with Danzig earlier and Soundgarden in 1990, and we were good friends with those bands. And they came through town, and Eric asked me to up on stage to sing, you know, "Helter Skelter" by the Beatles with him,
That's
which was
awesome.
kind of mind blowing and awesome. I got to do that in, you know, in my hometown with the almighty Eric Wagner and Trouble. So I was fast friends with Ron instantly. We were like, felt just a kinship. We were just brothers right away, and always stayed in touch over the years, and mutual respect. And he came, you know, back in, you know, into my life, obviously much later here. But so COC, yes, we were always just huge fans. You could see in the back of the Blind album, Reed's actually wearing a Trouble T-shirt, and one of the on the back of the album. Um, I remember when we were opening up for Maiden '92, we actually parked our tour bus in front of Ron and Bob's mom's house where they were staying, and hung out with them for 2 days, you know, raising hell and jamming and just having a great time. So we've always known those guys, you
Very
know.
cool. Uh, it's interesting. Recently, I spoke to a band who had a similar background as yours. They were an 80s crossover band who started integrating more metal influences like COC did. And one of the bands that they cited specifically was Trouble. People, people who I think a lot of the people who listen to this podcast will be a lot younger than we are, but a lot of people may not realize that, there was no doom metal scene as such in the 80s. There were bands like you mentioned, St. Vitus and The Obsessed and Trouble, but there really wasn't a lot of bands. There really weren't a lot of bands that were doing, this kind of like true doom, Sabbath kind of stuff back then. Um,
Right.
yeah. Uh, during the
Yeah, it was just there's just all these various bands, yeah, interpreting it, you know.
yeah. Uh, please go ahead. I'm not sure if you had something else you wanted to say.
Oh no, no, no. I'm just no, I'm just adding to it that yeah, you're right. There were and I also don't think there was specifically, I don't remember being labeled specifically a Doom thing at that time. We just recognized that they were, Sabbath influence and had this kind of retro vibe, but we're doing a fresh take on it. It was just, there was a lot of genres, subgenres throughout the whole metal scene. And that was one that we just instantly respected and saw kind of the truth in it. And those guys did such a good job of making it their own. So it was hard to deny Trouble. But we're just massive fans. Amongst other bands like Candlemass and Saint Vitus, and
Yeah.
obviously later, The Obsessed as well.
So Carl, you laid the groundwork for how Legions of Doom came together. Eric from the Skull and Trouble passed away, and you were invited to do some shows with them and perform some of the songs. When did Legions of Doom uh when did the band members decide that they're going to record this album and continue playing music?
I think it was just a natural progression of saying, hey, we have all this unfinished material that was we were, where this is Ron and Lothar speaking, the actual members of the Skull, and saying, hey, we have this material that needs to find a home, and this has gone beyond just us kind of doing a memorial tribute kind of thing. Um, which there's nothing wrong with that, but it was just like, look, this has legs. This is going somewhere. So Ron and Lothar saw fit to say, hey, let's have these individuals that are doing this with us, me and Henry, and now Scott Little, and obviously Scott Reavers, come in, um, interpret the stuff that was going to be the third Skull album. So it just kind of naturally happened, but kind of it just had to. It was just felt like it was just imminent.
Yeah. Uh, I mean, if you know, if you don't mind me asking, Eric Wagner has some left some pretty big shoes to fill. He had a very distinctive voice. It- did you have any kind of
Absolutely.
hesitation, or did you have any kind of hesitation in taking over some of these songs?
Yes, absolutely. I was kind of mortified, when Ron asked me, said, "Hey, do you want to do this tribute show?" But I was honored too. It was Ron saying, "Hey, I think you're the right person to do this. I think you can do it." And I, of course, was really questioning if I could pull it off. But I was like, "Okay, I can't be him. No one can be him. He's unique. He's brilliant. He has his own thing, and no one can imitate him." And I was not looking to, and also not capable of sounding exactly like him. I just said, I'll just do my interpretation of it, and put heart into it. And I think that's what made it viable in the eyes and ears of people that were at that show in Chicago. And they said, you know what, of course it's not the same. It's not possible. I mean, when I hit that stage, I looked up and there was a banner of Eric, a huge banner hanging up at Reggie's in Chicago. And I was like, wow, there he is looking at me.
Yeah,
But I it felt good.
yeah.
And I was ready for people to literally boo or throw beer bottles. Who knows, right? But I just try to do my homework and show it the respect that it deserves and deserves. So I still get to sing those Skull songs, um, as well as obviously the new Legions of Doom songs and the other songs that we all bring to the table from our various bands. But it's an honor. It's a complete honor, and I'm blown away that when I really just stop and think about it, I'm just like, wow, I get to do this, you know?
So, as you mentioned, the first Legions of Doom album is called The Skull 3, and it'll be out on September 13th through TP Records.
Yeah.
Uh, Carl, on this album, you share vocal duties with Scott Rieger. Can you tell me
Yeah.
what the breakdown is? Which songs you do and which songs he does?
Um, you know, let me have that's sad. I should be able to name them all. I should have my talking points ready. If you want, I can take a look.
Sure.
Um,
Or
have you heard
I
the,
mean, I have the track listing here, but is it more or less half and half?
It is exactly half and half. So you know
Okay.
what? Name a song, and that's how you sing it.
Okay. Uh,
So I sang
track one,
"All Good
Beyond.
Things," the first
Okay, all good
single.
things. All right.
Oh no,
Uh,
track one's fine. "Beyond the Shadows Out." That's me.
okay. All good things, which you mentioned, is you.
That's me.
Lost Soul,
That is Scott Riggers.
A Voice of Reason,
Scott Riggers, and by the way, that's being released today as a single.
and we should talk about that in a little bit. Um,
Yeah,
but Between Darkness and Dawn,
that's me.
Incesticide, Insecticide,
That's me.
okay. Heaven, which is Eric Wagner.
Eric, and then yeah, and then the remaining songs are Scott Riggers.
Okay. Uh, so let's talk about the single that's coming out today. Uh, this is also being released in tribute to someone you guys know, to a friend of yours. Can you tell me a little bit about the new single?
I'm sorry, repeat that.
Oh, just tell me a little bit about the new single that's coming out today.
It's a tribute to all the band members, the guys and Vitus that have passed on, and also it's all cumulative. Also, of the whole thing is also attributed to like Reed Mullen for me, and it's just basically the focus is on the vibe is about our loss and moving on. I can't speak specifically to you need to ask Scott Riggers in particular what he was getting at, but it's a tribute to all our fallen brothers and all the various bands we've been in.
Yeah. I mean, I'm getting older. I think as time goes on, um we lose people, right? Like I just had an uncle pass away a couple days ago, and it's one of those things that uh you know you just kind of get used to and learn to expect and live with, right? As time goes on.
Well, nothing lasts forever, right? And we're all, like you said, we're getting on up there, and things happen. It's just we all have a limited time here on the planet, I guess, and the key is always to make the most of it. And we're all, I consider myself incredibly lucky and privileged to be able to play music and have people that care about it, and it's just the best thing that I know, and the place I feel most connected to the universe and transcendent. And that's the thing, with music, you can listen to Eric sing like the song Heaven on the new album, or even old stuff, and that's where you find that he lives forever. When you listen to the music, when you hear his voice, he's alive in that moment with you. And I think that's the power of art and the power of music, is that it allows something to carry on. It's like the molecules are the vibrations are there out in the reaching out, and you once again you're there. That's the best part of music in my mind.
So how did uh Eric's vocal performance on Heaven come about? Were these scratch tracks from an old demo?
So he had demoed. My understanding is he had demoed stuff, and Ron said that he had tracked stuff with him playing acoustic guitar. He was singing parts, singing things and ideas he had demoed. And in this particular song, he was playing guitar, and they really liked it. Obviously, he passed away, and uh, Ron and Lotar really liked the song. And through the use of modern technology, kind of they were able to wipe the guitar part that actually Eric had tracked live, just him and the microphone and him singing a guitar, and they wiped the guitar, the acoustic, and built Lotar and Ron built a song underneath it, and built a bed basically for Eric's voice. So it's kind of a use of modern technology to create something kind of amazing, I think, and it's the best use of it. We've heard of things like this before, Beatles tracks and stuff, but this is, for me, it's just a really cool moment of the best use of technology,
Yeah.
you know.
And it does have a little bit of that Beatles flavor. I remember
Well,
Eric was a big Beatles fan.
massive. Obviously, like I said earlier, he had asked me to sing Helter Skelter with him on stage, and you can hear it throughout all Years of Trouble and his solo stuff and the Skull, that there's these moments, these total tributes to the Beatles in that. And I grew up being a Beatles fan. I'm not a hater like some people are, whatever. I'm a fan. It was, I have all the vinyl from back in the day, from my parents. Had all the stuff that they bought in the '60s, and when the Beatles were current, and I still have all that original vinyl. A lot of it's pretty beat up, but I still have it. And that was in the house, and it definitely was an influence on me at a young age, wanting to, it was part of the whole thing that triggered me to get into, music and yeah, me and millions of other people, I guess.
Yeah. Can you tell me where the album was recorded?
Yes. And good God, I'm brain dead right now.
It was at Steve Albini's old studio, right?
Yes, Steve Albini. So thank you. Yes, Steve Albini studio. It was tracked there, the live, the drums, guitars, bass, and then we went to our friend Sanford studio, Hypercube, a smaller studio for me to track vocals and the Riegers to track vocals, and lead guitar parts were done there as well. So it was a combination of two studios, and it was a really cool process. Multi-stepped, multi-tiered. But part of the challenge for us is always that we all live in different cities. Um, the band's essentially based in Chicago, but Henry Vasquez the drummer lives in Texas and Keller, Greater Dallas. Scott Little, the guitar player, and one of the guitar players and myself, we live in the Raleigh Durham area. I live in Durham. He lives in Raleigh, and you know Ron and Lotar live in Chicago. So that's kind of the process has become that we have to do things a certain way to make it work. We're not
Right.
all just down the street from each other and able to jump in a studio at the same time.
Yeah.
But it still feels organic and natural to us, and I think that's we're able to get away with it.
Yeah. So how does it work in terms of rehearsing for the recording or for the upcoming live shows?
I'm I'm flying to Scott and I are flying. We're all flying to Texas tomorrow to practice this weekend to get ready for the album release weekend. So that's how we got to do it. So Henry's got a practice space, a really cool studio down there. And if we're not doing it there, we're doing it in Chicago and Ron's basement in his house, which is awesome too. His wife Carol puts up with us, so it's great, and she's awesome. She's the rock, and Henry he puts us up in his awesome house down there too, and jam down there. So it's cool. So it's you know just getting on that plane and going there. I guess I'm just glad I'm not driving, right? So.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, the album was engineered by Sanford Parker. Had you worked with Parker before this?
No, no, but I was certainly aware of people he had worked with, like that he had worked with other people, and he's just a brilliant guy and easygoing and just absolutely, yeah, like it was just super easy, painless. And then also our buddy Quentin, his mixing studio too. He's great. So there's three different studios. The album was mixed at another studio as well, where we actually tracked the video for the in-house studio stuff for All Good Things. Some of it's shot there and Reggie's and a couple other places too. But
Okay. Uh,
yeah,
as far as Sanford Parker, he worked on the previous Skull albums as well, right?
yes, I believe so. Yeah,
Yeah. What would you say he brought to the sound of the album?
that he brought.
Yeah, as an engineer.
Well, I mean, that's a hard thing to quantify, really. I guess just his experience and skill.
Yeah.
These guys just they're extremely skilled engineers and have their producer hats on too and make great suggestions and specifically I can't say like was this sound or that, just that just his great ability and his good ear, and the fact that he was hospitable, had a great, comfortable place to be in, and that's the trick with the studio. If you go in and you just the vibe is bad, if it just doesn't feel homey or you don't feel connected, it can really reflect on it and create a bad performance. But for me, it was just super easy. He's just really good at what he does.
Yeah. With the roots of this band, in terms of the sound, going back to the '70s with Sabbath and the '80s with all this stuff that you guys have been involved with, like Vitus, and Trouble. Were you guys looking to capture a specific era? Do you want the sound to be a little bit traditional in that sense?
No, I don't think anybody stepped into the ring thinking that, right? Like, I think we inherently bring those influences because we all show up with a lot of baggage, both good and bad, but in that sense, good, like, I don't mean baggage, but, we have these things we carry with us that are our go-to things that we grew up with, and I think that we had that commonality. We shared that feeling and respect for that era. So yeah, I mean, we all look back obviously to the Masters, Sabbath, and other bands. Whether it's I don't know. There's so many bands of that era, but the greatest one like Sabbath. We could never replicate that because that's just its own thing, and but I think we all come out of that era of looking back to the early, late '60s, early '70s, and even the '80s with a lot of the British metal bands, the New Album stuff. We have this shared um, palette or something. I don't know how to say it, but and we all draw from that. And I think just that's what happened is we just had this kinship and we understanding that that's we all look to that and share that. And that's kind of what comes out. I don't think it is a studied thing. It just kind of just happens. You know,
Sure.
we throw it in the pot and mix it up, and it has that vibe. That feel.
And Sanford played some Moog on this album as well, right?
I'm sorry.
Oh, I believe Sanford Parker played some Moog keyboards on this album as well.
Yes, yes. Sorry. Yes, he does. He played keyboard. Sorry. Excuse my. I'm deaf for obvious reasons. Years of exposure. Yeah, and then Alex, who actually played second guitar for a bit on when the first European tour I was on, plays slide or pedal steel, whatever, in the beginning of Between Darkness. So there's some cool guest players on there, some pockets of things.
Uh, as far as the guests, I mean, Sanford was already working with you, but how did the other guests become involved? Were they just friends of yours that
Well,
were hanging around?
yeah, no, Alex had been he's from good friends with Henry Vasquez and was brought in. He's actually played pedal steel stuff for a bunch of different bands, like, and as is actually like total professional, but is just a brilliant guitar player as well. But he came in just as a suggest, the Ron and you know thought, hey, let's add another texture, another layer to this bass intro of mine. This is kind of stark thing, and give it a little more vibe, a little more feel. And he jumped right in and did that. I wasn't there for that, but I was just kind of blown away when I heard it because the original demo version didn't have any of that. So when that showed up, I was like, "Oh, holy shit!" So very, very cool.
When you heard the final album with both your contributions and Scott's contributions, Scott Rieger's vocals, what was your first impression? What was your reaction?
I was floored. I mean, it's funny. You don't, when you step away from it, you've done your part, and then the mix happens, and then the mastering, and I was just really, really blown away. I was like, wow, I actually really like this. Like it's important to like your own record, but sometimes you don't
Yeah.
know, right? Like, there's a lot of there might be some shortcomings or things you hated about the mix, but this overall is just really hits hard. And for me, I can hear that had some good moments, specifically myself, like that I'm like, okay, I did all right. I can stand by that. Um, so I was just, yeah, I'm absolutely happy with the results. And it's just, and then it tells, I feel like it tells a story. There's a narrative, like there's a trajectory. It's just from beginning to end. I think there's a good vibe, and it's well sequenced, and it feels like a complete album rather than just a collection of singles. Old school in that sense. Like it tells a story the way we used to put on records back in the day and listen straight through. Rather than just track a track here or track there.
Is that how you'd prefer people to listen to the album? Do you want it to be an
Well,
immersive experience from beginning to end?
I'll be happy to take anything. If anybody, if somebody just wants to be excited about one song or maybe two, and that's it for them, that's fine. But I think I would love it if people could listen to it as a complete work. But that's just, what I want doesn't mean it has to happen, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to happen. I think there's going to be a song that hits people at a certain time, or that speaks more to them than other songs, and that's cool as long as something works for them. um, but I don't think I can demand that they must sit from it from beginning to end and not stop. Of course it's a cool idea, but unenforceable, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, you'll be flying out to Texas for rehearsals for upcoming shows. Do you want to say anything about the fest that you'll be playing and the other live appearances?
I'm sorry, one more time about
Oh,
playing.
you have some live shows coming up. Do you want to say anything about the live shows?
Oh, absolutely, man. So no, we're heading down to Texas this weekend, just a jam, and then obviously we're super excited that we get to play the opening night of Desert Fest, basically the pre-opening party, with TP there, their home base, New York City. We're there with Kenny, and we get to launch the thing. We headline that first opening night, and then we get to go up to Braintree, outside of Boston, and play as well. And then from there we fly back to Raleigh, or fly to Raleigh, and I get to play my first hometown show with this band, which is super exciting. Scott and I get to the other Scott Little. We get to play in front of friends and family down here, and in our own backyard, which is pretty great. And then a week after that, we are playing Ripple Fest in Austin, Texas. And then the next set of gigs we are playing. We're gonna play November 2nd and 3rd, I believe. Heavy Chicago, the second one, the second annual Heavy Chicago, and we're actually doing one night as the Skull, and where we're just doing with me singing and us doing a straight Skull set, and then the next night we're doing Legions and doing the new album.
Cool.
So that's all we got booked right now, but I'm pretty stoked about it.
Yeah. And I think you said that there might be some COC songs on the set list.
Yeah, we've snuck some in before for sure, and that's always fun because I had a pretty short run in the band. I was in the band for 4 years, but literally the album came out in '91, and I was out in '93. So there's kind of basically like an 18-month window, not even 2 years, where I was performing those songs live, that the whole album. And some people got to see it, obviously, and but a lot of people that may have come to it a little bit later, younger people, or people that just never caught the tours, haven't I've never seen those songs live. So it's really fun and to launch those songs and try to do them justice, and people to watch their faces and people freak out and say, "Hey, man, you know, it's pretty great." So
Yeah,
come out with "Dance of the Dead" or "Great Purification" or you know various other songs. So it's awesome. It's super fun.
that's awesome. So by the time people hear this episode, The Skull 3 will be out through TP Records. Karl, please tell everyone how they can order the album. What's the best way to get it?
So you're gonna have to go look up TP Records. I don't have the URL right in front of me, but we're not on Bandcamp as far as I know. We're not, but you'd have to go to the TP Records site and order from them, or go to your local retailer, or or online store and request it if they don't already have it. But if you go straight to the source to TP, you can definitely find it. And I'm sure that as things get going, there'll probably be even more ways to find it. But right now, that's the way to do it.
Do you want to say anything about the vinyl version that TP's putting out? The green vinyl?
All I can say is awesome. I'm stoked. That's about it. No, I'm just super pumped that that's happening.
Yes.
If yeah, if it's collectible, obviously. So the 7 inch just came out not that long ago with a deep purple cover on the one side and all good things. So that's a collectible too. And then obviously the full album coming out. So yeah, if you're into vinyl, man, I think you'll dig it, man. It's one to put in the collection and put on the turntable every once in a while, right?
And if people want to follow Legions of Doom online and get updates on live shows and stuff like that, what's the
So
best way
you
to
can
do
go
that?
to Instagram, Legions of Doom Band, and it's Legions with an S. And then also you could go to Legions of Doom on Facebook. And also there is the holdover, the Skull and Legions of Doom also exists. So there's like two places on Facebook. The Skull and Legions of Doom and Legions of Doom, and then Legions of Doom Band on Instagram. Right now, those are the ways to find us.
And you mentioned Lie Heavy. What's the status with Lie Heavy? What do you guys have planned?
Oh, well, thanks for asking. Lie Heavy is right now we're writing the next album. So um, Burn to the Moon came out this past year. It was Heavy Psych putting it out with a new album cover and giving us awesome distribution. I'm very grateful for that to them. And so now we're in the process of just hunkering down and writing the next album. And hopefully we'll be able to launch that early 2025, hopefully spring. But we have more than an album's worth written. We're just going to keep writing and writing, and then we're going to call the herd, and put the best tracks forward. So
Very cool.
no title yet, but yeah, look out for the next Light Heavy thing. And I
Very
also
cool.
got some Patriarchs and Black stuff going on. If you want to check that out, a project with Johnny Kelly and Dan Lorenzo. So that's out there too, and also a work in progress. So I'll be doing a song on the fourth album as well when that comes out.
Very cool. Thanks so much, Carl.